Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill, all things Team USA. You and I haven't talked about this yet. What'd you think of LeBron ending up as the flag bearer for the U.S. Olympic team? He's the first this kind of surprised me. First men's basketball player to get this honor. Third basketball player overall. Sue Bird and Dawn Staley. Shouts to Philly's own Dawn Staley did it. But first men's basketball player.
I think he was correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron. I think he's the first American male athlete to get this honor, is what I read. I won't pretend to be that's what I read. Doesn't mean it's true, but it wasn't on the was on the internet, but it's not like it was on. It's cool, right? And I'm sure you saw Coco Gauff got voted to be the female flag bearer for the USA. So it's a pretty cool tandem of talent. And I like it. I think it speaks to the way that LeBron must be viewed because it's by all the athletes, obviously, not just the basketball players. It's a cool honor. It's a big deal. Good for him. I love it.
It really is the summer of LeBron. Like the contract.
It is the summer of LeBron. Yeah.
And Bronny's contract, and now Team USA, and he's got the flag bearing thing, and he's jamming. All right, later in the show, we are going to discuss his Team USA teammate Joel Embiid taking a little dig at their fellow Team USA teammate Jason Tatum.
Big dig. Maybe big dig. Maybe
you think big dig. I thought a little slighter dig, but also kind of a dig at like previous Sixers teams. So we'll get into that. And then his new Sixers teammate, Paul George, was introduced to the Philadelphia media yesterday, and he had some things to say, including some stuff on his podcast about his old team, the Clippers. But first, Michael Phelps was a flag bearer. Yeah, there have been many U.S. flag bearers who are male.
I'm telling you. All right, now I'm just going to call him out now. 100% was in an ESPN story that I read. Because I saw it and I thought, that can't be right. So whatever, Bristol screwed up.
That's all on you, Bristol. But first, we're going to talk about Team USA. I'm interested to see. I know you and Ashley talked about it on yesterday's program, but you and I haven't discussed it. I'm kind of in the same way that Team USA is all over the place. I'm kind of all over the place on how I feel about them. They squeak past Germany. They do finish 5-0. LeBron saves them in the Germany game, having 20 points and 11 in the fourth quarter. And then also the game-winning layup against South Sudan, Bill.
This is the one that is.
Thank God they didn't run into North Sudan, I guess. How do you feel about this team right now?
I'm with you in that it's really hard to know if the flashing red warning light is serious or not, or it's just an effort issue and they didn't really try and South Sudan got hot and inspired. But here's what I'll say. Here's how I feel about this team. They don't win gold. It is a legitimate, I think, catastrophe and worthy of massive amounts of scorn. But I can't pretend to be able to evaluate from those two near misses. And the South Sudan game, as you know, 44.5-point favorites. That's how big of a dog South Sudan was. And they lost by 1. I mean, that's a historic swing just in terms of the line. Yeah, I think that it's going to be really interesting when they play Serbia, when they play real teams and the best player in the NBA, and they play actual squads that have some international confidence and swagger. If they don't win, it's going to be nightmare scenario for a lot of people on that team.
I had HQ after Germany with Avery Johnson, and he was like, well, let's give Germany and South Sudan some credit. They have NBA players, they have NBA coaches. And I was like, that's true. They played really well. You know who also has a lot of NBA players and NBA coaches is Team USA. And on paper, they should be way better. I don't understand what's happening.
South Sudan had a few, and Germany had 4. And Franz Wagner's a good player, but who's their second best player? Is it Schroeder? Is it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Daniel Tice.
Yeah, I think it's Tice, right? Is it? I don't. It is because I'm German last name writer, so that's like the one pronunciation I can actually. EI is an I can rock. I think it's a huge problem. We talked. Ash and I discussed this yesterday. You can put it at the players' feet. You can put it at the sort of weird fit with Embiid and those other starters. But it's a Steve Kerr thing. Dude, to your point, John, you are also Steve Kerr, an NBA head coach. You have some rings. You're a pretty successful one. And you have some pretty talented guys. Figure it out. And especially, can I just add this? You almost lose to South Sudan. Okay. How do you not come out and just kick the living crap out of Germany as just a statement of, we get it, that was a weird game, but we understand the seriousness of how we need to play.
Which is what they did against Serbia. And then I thought all of a sudden that, they had course corrected and everything was fine. Now we'll see. They are still the favorites heading into the Olympics, which begin this weekend. They are 2-9 favorites over the rest of the field. Canada second, France third, Serbia fourth, and then Germany. Spain a little farther down the list. Kind of surprised me. They're actually behind Greece and Australia. Well, they're tied with Australia at 50-1. Do you feel like they're still the favorites? I mean, on paper, they should be the favorites, right?
Yes, they're the favorites. I mean, Canada's a really good team, and you look at the roster, and it's like, oh yeah, I know who most of these guys are. Yes, they're the favorites, and they. So here's the thing that I think is really interesting. What are they like -4? Does the math come out to -450 or somewhere in that?
-450, yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
You have to win, not just because those are the numbers, and I do think that is the talent differential. It's not going to be this easy in 4 years and then 8 years. This is the last time that I think it's reasonable to say America has to win gold or it's a failure. Because I think there's a world where you look at the French team, obviously with Wembanyama, but not just Wembanyama, those other two dudes that were just drafted, and just that team can be really good in 4 years. The Canadian team is young; they're going to continue to improve. The game becomes increasingly international. Yeah, I think they're the favorites, and I think they should win. And maybe I'm just making too much of exhibition games that don't matter, and they didn't care. And maybe they were out partying in London and Berlin or wherever the hell these matches were at, or games are at. But they have to win. They can't not get gold, right?
They can't not get gold. They're going for their fifth straight. It really should be. I mean, I went back and we're going to compare.
South Sudan, 0 NBA players. Okay, 1 G League.
South Sudan has his grand.
That's what I thought.
Right. G League player. There you go.
Yeah, so like Bronny Range, great.
Bronny Range players going for their fifth gold medal. I went back and looked at the last gold medal winning team, and man, it is not a good team. And we're going to compare this team to like the Redeem team and the Dream team in a little bit. But you had mentioned, if they don't win, what a hit it is to them. If they don't win, let's do a little fatalism here. Who do you think would take the biggest blow legacy-wise? Because all these guys are massive superstars, up to and including Steve Kerr, who's one of the greatest coaches of all time, despite what our producer Aaron, who's Warriors, he is.
You can't make that as you cannot make that as you cannot make that as a declarative statement. No, just like Jerry,
I am making a declarative statement. He's won so many.
You can make it for yourself, but not for me and not for the show.
I'm not making it for you, of course. He becomes
Jerry Krause. Like he becomes like, oh, maybe that was a lot more about one guy than it was. If Steve Kerr doesn't get gold here, I think it absolutely, because it's not as if in a vacuum suddenly there's this idea, John, that emerges that Steve Kerr can't coach. Many Warrior fans think he's vastly overrated, and those fans watch more Warriors games than even you and I do. So there's a groundswell of people, not just Aaron, who are out there waiting to pounce and be like, "Wait, told you so." This guy, I don't think he's a bum. I think he's great. I think they're going to win. But I do think it's a reflection in a real way if he doesn't get it done.
I think it's a little silly for people who like want to nitpick a guy who's won at every level as a player and as a coach. And it's like, what else do you want from people? But fine. So on the list of, aside from what Steve Kerr is or is not, and he did have the 2023 World Cup failure last year. That didn't go great. That team should have won. They did not. So that is a blemish, but I think it's a minor blemish compared to everything that he's accomplished. But you also have Steph in his first Olympics. You also have LeBron, who wants to remain undefeated in the Olympics as Jordan did. Who takes the biggest blow here then in your mind?
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to ask the question, I'm going to give an answer. And like, I don't think it's ridiculous to answer the question. I don't think it's ridiculous. I mean, like, what's the right answer then? That all these guys if Steve Kerr gets a pass, then everybody gets a pass. I mean, like, if we're going to have the conversation, I don't understand. Like, if Steve Kerr just gets an automatic pass.
I'm not saying automatic pass. It was independent. You're boring down on the Steve Kerr thing. I had a separate conversation about
if he's a lock
and like his legacy, as opposed to on this team. If you
legacy,
of course,
his legacy can't be tarnished. If Steve Kerr's legacy can't be tarnished, I don't think anybody's going to be tarnished. I mean, I think Steve Kerr is the person who it reflects the most on. Now, I also think there's an unfair boomerang that goes back to LeBron James. Now, I'm going to make an argument that I don't actually believe is true, but I think people will make the argument that it reverts back his GOAT stat, or the silly sort of GOAT argument between him and Jordan. I love Jerry Harrison Jr., but I'll just make him an example, former baseball player who's constantly on social media. Jerry, I love you. Just like getting angry at people who say LeBron is better than Jordan, whereas I think there's no wrong answer. I'll take LeBron over Jordan, but I don't think there's a wrong answer. Those Jordan supporters are going to point to a lack of gold and say, LeBron, Jordan never failed to do it. This doesn't work. So I think, for me, I think it's Kerr and I think it's LeBron who will bear the brunt of it. I think Kerr should, and I think LeBron will.
Yeah, I think those are, reasonable answers. Although LeBron so far has been their best player, right? So like if he plays really, really well, and then like Steph and Ant's iso balling and Embiid hasn't looked good, although he was good in the Germany game. I want to see how it plays out here a little bit.
Who would you like? Who not blame, but like who do you think would take the biggest hit? Like I'll ask you the same question. Like who? Yeah,
I mean, well, depending on how LeBron plays, like if LeBron plays very well, that might sort of indemnify him a little bit from the criticism. Although, because he's the biggest name on the team, I think that he's probably going to get the most blowback. But yeah, Steve Kerr is somebody that people will point out, of course. As I mentioned, Steph, like in his first one, like how does he play? Ant's been really super heavy iso balling so far, and like I love him. I would love him to do a little bit less of that. And I wanted to get into also just how you think this team is playing right now, like the style of play, and also the roster construction. I mean, they don't have KD yet. He is the Team USA's all-time leading scorer, but as we know, calf injuries are tricky. And if they bring him back, what kind of KD are you going to get? Tyrese Halliburton, by the way, enjoy your all-expenses-paid trip to Paris. He has been phased out of this rotation. His minutes have declined in every single game, and up to and including a DNP-CD in Germany. So I still think like Kerr is trying to. I know that you and Ashley were talking about Kerr's rotations and maybe Spo should be the coach and whatever. They're still trying to figure out what fits and how to play. And like you ran out of time.
I mean, look, I think an easy fix is don't start Embiid, start Anthony Davis. It's a better fit, and Embiid just hasn't worked. And the weird thing about these sort of international teams, and I think Derek White on the other end of the spectrum is a great example of how well he played in the South Sudan game in the second half. Like he's not the best player in the team, obviously, but it's about fit and about role. And to pull from soccer, sometimes in soccer, like a guy isn't the best player, but he has a certain role that he just fits a certain need for a team, and so it works. Anthony Davis works with that starting four and just works in general, and Embiid has not. It's just been so that's like the first fix. Is just it's an insult to Embiid or whatever. Who cares? Like, don't take it personally. It's not the sort of rules of engagement of how you, I think, pick who starts and who plays is very different than an NBA basketball game. And the fit hasn't worked with Embiid. I would play a deal. I would start him.
They have him for very specific matchups. I was talking to Sam Quinn about this on last week's show about Embiid is really sort of like you're going to throw him at Joker and some of the bigger bodies. Germany was another team because they've got a big front line that you'd be like, okay. And he did play well in the Germany game, but I'm with you. I think Anthony Davis, in the same way that Drew Holiday, you can insert him into that starting lineup and they're going to do all the little things and they're going to play great defense. And you don't really have to ask them to be massive scorers. And it can be just like, oh, we have really defined roles within this starting five that has 2, 3, depending on what KD is looking like. And if not, I guess it's going to be Booker, just really awesome scorers. I like that fit a lot better too. So we'll see whether or not Steve Kerr makes that adjustment. Although he did say he's going to stick with Embiid in the starting lineup. So like maybe that changes as he goes forward. I don't know.
Can I just like full circle this? It's such a good point. None of this should matter. The only reason we're talking about it is because they almost lost to South Sudan, and Germany's not a bad team, but Germany played them. It's like just live up to the talent differential, right? Just be the third version of this sort of super team, and then rotations don't matter, who's playing doesn't matter. We shouldn't even be having these conversations. That is a reflection of a problem. These conversations shouldn't even be happening.
I totally agree. I watched the Redeem Team documentary the other day, and it's really good. But it made me think, what happened to just like Team USA dominance, right? Like steamrolling these opponents. Like, I mean, South Sudan, come on, right? Like Germany, you should be just crushing these teams. And it's hard to parse because you look at the roster and it's like it shouldn't matter. It's when we talked about it, you and I talked about it when Kawhi left the team and they brought in Derek White, and we're like, who cares? Doesn't matter.
Right. Not a big deal. Bummer for Kawhi. It'll be fine. And we had this KD conversation yesterday that I think was the right conversation. And what I said, I think was the right thing to say, but it felt ridiculous, which is maybe they should think about replacing KD if he's not reliable, but they shouldn't need Kevin Durant to be certain to play in group stage game 1 to have him on the roster. They should just be like, we're good enough. We'll roll. KD will be fine for the second or third game, or whatever, the knockout games. Who cares? It's just insane to me that and they do matter, that we have to sort of get into the weeds here as if we are Team Canada or we are Spain, or we are, well, we got to really fine tune everything to have a chance. We're America. What the bleep, Steve Kerr and company?
What the bleep? What the bleep? We'll see how they acquit themselves, but especially when you start to look at the names on the roster relative to, as we mentioned, the Dream Team and the Redeem Team, because line by line, player by player, 1 through 12, there's a case to be made for this team being better. We're going to take a break, and then you and I have been talking about comparing these rosters, so we're going to do that on the other side. You're listening to Beyond the Arc.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John and Bill hanging out on Wednesday. Please find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Download, subscribe, leave a review. Bill, this is something that you and I have discussed. We've wanted to talk about for a while.
Yeah, I like this topic.
This is the perfect time to do it. All right. So when this Team USA roster came out, we were like, wow, this is so loaded. And like, this really feels like a Dream Team or a Redeem Team. Which team do you want to start with to compare them to? Dream Team or Redeem Team?
Let's we start Dream Team, just chronological order, and like that's sort of the team of my youth. You're both the same age, like let's go. Yeah, I think people who don't follow closely would say it has to be the Dream Team because it was Jordan and that collection of greats.
So let me just run down the roster here for the Dream Team. This was the first one where they had pros. It was super exciting. They're playing in Barcelona. It was a really great Olympics. So they had Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, just like a murderer's row of Hall of Famers.
Already,
Magic, Barkley, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Scottie Pippen, Clyde Drexler. By the way, did you see Clyde Drexler is selling his Olympic medal from 92? Starts at $250K if you want to bid. Yeah,
he's needing the money.
I don't know if he needs the money, but he's the first person to sell a medal from that team. Also, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Chris Mullin, and then of course the one college guy who made the roster, Duke's very own and very hated Christian Laettner,
who tried to steal my car in the Olympics in 2012. I'll tell you, when we're of a really slow thing, I'll tell you my crazy Christian Laettner, like, you're not taking my car, bro, moment at 7 a.m. We're all hungover. Yeah, Christian Laettner is not nice in that particular moment. Christian, I'm sure you're a very nice man in general. He tried to take my car. Hell no, man.
Get out of there. Everybody wait in line. Everybody queue properly.
My car, dude.
There's really no weaknesses on that roster in the same way that when I look at this current roster, I don't see anybody who I go, they shouldn't be on this team. I guess Tyrese Halliburton would be the guy that I'd cut and replace
on this team. Yeah, me too.
Because well,
I was gonna say that. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go.
Well, no, just that he's so ball dominant, right? And they have guys to do that. And right now they're using him as they were when they were playing him. They were using him as an off-ball shooter. And then at some point, Steve Kerr was like, "Oh yeah, right. We really don't need him to do that either. So we're just going to sit him down." So I think Tyrese would be the guy that I'd cut, and obviously Christian Laettner would be the guy that you'd replace on the Dream Team. But other than that, tough to get rid of somebody.
So if you're looking at the Dream Team, you're talking in Jordan, obviously, depending on your view, the best or second best player of all time. And including Jordan, you've got 4 top 10 players in the history of the sport? No. Maybe 3. Bird, Magic, Mike.
Although Bird at the time, aging, right, 35, a little slower. Yeah. Magic also.
Malone in his prime, and he's, I think, one of the most underrated players in history for his lack of rings. Like, that guy gets a ring, and I think we're talking about him as a top 10 years ago, 15 now. I think was that good. And he's also not likable now.
Pippen in his prime. John Stockton was in his prime.
Incredible player.
Barkley was in his prime.
Yeah.
I mean, Barkley, height of his powers, not only in terms of his basketball ability, but also just his mouth. I mean, he just ran all over Barcelona. Like, you got to give him a little bit of credit for just being like hyper entertaining in that Olympics.
So maybe the prime argument's a strong argument, because my first instinct is this 2000 and 2014, because if you look at the roster, but KD injured, not in his prime. LeBron's amazing, but he's going to be 40 in December. I mean, you sort of go down. Yeah, I'm surprised. Maybe I'm a little Dream Team here. It's also the team is balanced better. Like, the roles, as you sort of went through the roster, like, the roles are really clear. Yes. You know what every guy has to do. I'm not sure people who didn't watch NBA back then realize like how ridiculous. So Gary Payton, some of this I think is I love you, GP, but it's like I think is revisionistic history. But he'll tell you that he thought the hardest player he ever guarded was John Stockton and not Michael Jordan. Now, there's a lot going on there, but the point is, I think people don't realize how amazing Stockton was, how insanely historically great at that position. Arguably the best point guard of all time. I don't think he was, but you can put him in the conversation.
And they were so, I mean, like they figured out how to play together almost immediately. They had that famous scrimmage where they didn't play well and they supposedly lost to the college kids. And then after that, it was just get your gear together, get your act together. We are going to stomp all over. And in some instances with Barkley, literally stomp on the opposition.
We're going to physically hurt you, intimidate you.
Just roll through you. And they just they figured out how to move the ball. Like that team was so much fun to watch. And I think that's sort of the frustration with this current team, that they should be able to. I understand that you haven't played together, but you're all unbelievable basketball players. And it's like, the competition does not stack up so far.
So the other thing that I was thinking about, which I know sort of gets into psychology, which maybe you're not as interested in as I am, but bear with me on the point. I was thinking about this. So I like Isaiah Thomas, the Hall of Famer, not the former Celtic. I like Isaiah, but a lot of people don't. And that team didn't. And I had a big thing. He didn't make that team, and he's very bitter and frustrated about it. Right. But, and Isaiah, if you're watching, but fair or not, it also reflected that the stars picked the players in large part. They liked each other, that there was sort of a togetherness. And we know that Mike and Chuck were best friends until that falling out over Charles saying stuff on TNT. My point is maybe there's a chemistry issue with this particular team relative to that team. Those things matter too. I mean, we're going to talk Embiid, whether he took a shot at Tatum or not. And is Halliburton really hanging out with LeBron? Maybe that dream team too was better in part because they had a shared goal. First time that pros had done this. And they left off the guys, in this case, guy that they didn't like. And they brought the guys they did. And that stuff can matter sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely matters. I mean, it was Jordan's team, and he decided that, Isaiah's not going to make this team.
He's not coming, which is crazy.
It's just crazy. Terrible. But also, I kind of really enjoy the pettiness there. Maybe the current Team USA get along too well. I don't know. I mean, because there doesn't, even with Embiid and Tatum, and like you said, we're going to talk about that later. They're rivals. They train with the same trainer. They're in LA together all summer, every summer. I've seen them work out together. They get along just fine. They're competitors. But it's not like there's acrimony there. Whereas with Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas, there was obvious acrimony. I do want to touch on the Redeem team.
Did you see Aaron's thing? Did you see Aaron real quick draft?
Sure.
To a top 5 draft between the dream team and this team. To your point, I think Jordan, because he's peak Jordan.
Yeah.
Is one, right? And then two get I don't know.
LeBron, right? I mean, it's gotta be LeBron.
Even at 39? All right.
Yeah. He's been amazing. He's still LeBron.
He is so good. He is so good.
He's been really good. I'm looking at this roster. Is there a single person that you'd take over him right now?
No, I think you're right on LeBron. I'm not taking Durant on that list because of his calf. I'm just not we're doing this moment in time. So I'm trying to remember because Bird and Magic inflate in my memory because of their careers. But
I think I go Barkley because he did lead them in scoring. And
what about yeah, you're right.
Malone was amazing.
Malone would be high on my list.
Amazing. You might end up with 3 dream teamers, if not 4. But I would go Jordan and Barkley for sure, and then LeBron, and then it's a conversation about Steph probably.
Yeah, Steph. But he's still great. I think AD is interesting. He didn't start. I think AD on paper is a guy that I would
is interesting too. I'm looking here. As you mentioned, Malone was a monster then. Stockton was a monster Tatum. Then. It's not Tatum. It's not Embiid. It's not Bam. It's not Embiid. Yeah, you run out of guys on the current team real fast as you're comparing them to the dream team. So
I know it's not Magic and Bird. I know that that's career, not that. But Stockton, I think you just said Stockton. Maybe Stockton in the 5 range. Anyway, I just think that's an interesting. It feels like it's dream team, which I thought my answer would be different.
It is. It feels like it's dream team, and as I was looking at this, I thought it was going to be pretty obviously either dream team or current team. But just as we discuss it, especially when we get to the redeem team, then you're like, yeah, this was a fun team, but there's some back end talent where you're like, how'd they make this team? So I just want to run through this right now. Kobe, LeBron, Jason Kidd, D Wade, Chris Paul, Chris Bosh, Carmelo, incredible. Darren Williams at the time, very good. Dwight Howard at the time, people forget he was an unbelievable player, like early on in his career, even through halfway to 3/4 of the way through his career. And then it kind of went off the cliff a little bit. The last three guys here is where people are going to go, right? Yeah, we can forget about the redeem team. Carlos Boozer, he was good at the time, but come on. Michael Redd made that team. And then,
oh my God.
Yeah. And then Tayshaun Prince. Now, Tayshaun Prince, the casuals might have forgotten about Tayshaun Prince. He was he made all defense 4 times. He was an unbelievable defender, but he barely played on that team. And he was basically only on the team as like a defensive stopper. So like those last 3, it was basically like
you said Chris Paul, team. Right? Chris Paul's on that team.
Yeah. Chris Paul was on the team. Chris Bosh. Yeah. So 9 out of 12, not bad.
And was that Dwight Howard Magic, Orlando Magic? I mean, was
2008. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cause he was there in 2010.
Yeah.
I think his last year
was awesome.
He was amazing. That's a pretty, and Melo, I think you talk about role, like the role that Melo played on that team, he was incredible. He didn't have to be the guy. He didn't try to be the guy. He was like 6-man or just like, I'll be the 3rd or 4th option if you need me. And he was amazing. Like the best version of Melo I've ever seen.
Michael Redd, congratulations on being on the redeem team and getting the gold. And he was a good player. He had a good NBA career. I don't mean to besmirch him, but when we're talking about him in, the context of the dream team or the current Team USA, Michael Redd, Tayshaun Prince, despite the fact that he made 4 all defensive teams, Carlos Boozer, none of those guys are making either of the other 2 teams. No chance.
I'm actually starting to get a little worried about our team as we go through these rosters because a lot of our big star, Kevin Durant, older, injured. I know LeBron's amazing, but I mean, LeBron's amazing. He is not LeBron James from the 2015 or 16 finals where he's going to score 40 points and have 17 rebounds and 13 assists and 5 blocks and 5 steals. I mean, that's like he was Herculean back then. Like who's the second best player on this team right now? Right now, as you go through our
team right now,
24. Yeah. Right today, like how they're playing. It's not Embiid. He's not playing well.
It's not Embiid. I mean, on paper, I guess I'd pick Steph.
Oh, Steph. Yeah, I keep forgetting about Steph.
AD.
But he's been okay.
AD. I mean, if we're talking about just the merits of like how they've played, AD has been just consistent, just like really solid, right? He hasn't had a game where you're like, oh man, what's going on with AD? He fits into the way FIBA plays. He can plant himself under the paint, protect the rim, pluck the ball off the rim because they don't have that kind of goaltending. Like there's just this kind of game where like he can influence it and not have to do too much.
He's like Melo, like his fit is perfect for what the team needs.
But I think in theory, conceptually, it's still Steph, right? It should be. It should be.
It should be. And by the way, and I think it will be. Let me say this: like I think it will be when we. But I love Steph. Steph is great. He's older, man. Like he's still great, but he's not Steph from 4 years ago either. I mean, these guys are. This is an older version of a dream, redeem, self-esteem team. Whatever
the self-esteem team is pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's not bad, right?
You get credit for that. I think that we decided, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going dream team over self-esteem team and certainly over redeem team, but that's pretty good. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. And then on the other side, we had 2 Sixers, one of whom is on Team USA, who had spicy things to say in the last couple of days. So we'll go through that. You're listening to Beyond the Arc.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As The gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Since you're a soccer guy, can I tell you a quick funny story from my vacation? So I went to London and I went to Paris last week, like pre-Olympics, right? And my son was trying to decide if he should root for England or Spain because we go to Spain a lot and we were in England and it was the Euro final. When we were there, we got there the day before. And it turned out that every person, we stayed at a really nice hotel. You know how this works. Like I couldn't usually afford it, but rocked the Marriott points. So very fancy, right? The Marriott points. And every person at that hotel hated England and saw Henry wore an England jersey and Spain shorts because they're all from Ireland and Scotland and Eastern Europe. And I like the English a lot. English people, I love you. You're great. I studied abroad there. Every day we came back from like traversing the city, and there would just be the people that like clean the room or whoever, just people that work there were leaving my son Spain cookies. And I have a Spain flag that I brought back with me that we got in England. No, they're not even from Spain. They just so hated England because they root against them, I guess, because they're Ireland fans. That it was this capital of Spain at this random hotel in London. Very weird. And
that's a fun experience. One of my buddies was over there for the latest England collapse. It's never coming home. That's unfortunate for them. It's never coming home. And I love England. But my Irish and Scottish buddies, the Schadenfreude that they experience when England loses is through the roof.
Just like my guy Colin, who checked me into the hotel room. And I'm pretty sure, I have pretty high Marriott status. I've spent my life traveling. But when I told him I was rooting for Spain over England, and he told me he hates England because he's Irish, we got upgraded to a huge suite.
Yeah, I mean, the love of somebody else's disappointment. I get it. Like a bunch of my buddies, as I've mentioned, I lived in Boston for a little bit. A bunch of my buddies are Celtics fans. And when the Celtics don't perform well, I love that. It's very enjoyable to me. Unfortunately, they are now currently defending NBA champions, which brings us to one Joel Embiid, who's on Team USA. He recently went on the Check Ball podcast, which is his trainer, Drew Hanlon. Drew Hanlon, for people who don't know, like in the offseason, LA basically becomes like NBA Central. Everybody just comes out here and a bunch of them have different trainers. And one of the big trainers is Drew Hanlon. And he works with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And one of the other guys he works with is Jason Tatum. And so Joel Embiid went on his podcast recently, on Drew Hanlon's podcast, and was talking about Jason Tatum maybe not acquitting himself so well during the playoffs. And here's what Joel Embiid said.
It gives me trouble about Jason. Yeah, he's got a super team. You know what I mean? Like, if I had a super team too, I would win too. You know?
I mean, I tell him the same thing. Like,
well, you got a super team now, coach.
If I go 5 for 20, like, we get blown out.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
The voice that you heard at first there sounding like Embiid, or making the Embiid funny voice, was Drew Hanlon. And then in comes Embiid. Bill, you really think that this is like a pretty good thing?
By the way, he's not wrong, but I would also add that Boston, as we've discussed a lot, is built differently. I think historically, uniquely, where you don't need Tatum. Tatum does a lot of other things. It gets doubled. So, like, there's not the context here. But also, Embiid also needs to be healthy. I mean, like, let's also add in, like, it doesn't matter if you're not playing or you don't play enough in the regular season, you have to play the Knicks early on. Like, it doesn't matter if you go 5 for 20 or you don't, because you put this team in a tough spot. But, yeah, I do think it's a shot fired. And I think it's kind of a weird thing to have out there as you're playing with Tatum at the Olympics. Like, that's and he's sharing that he told, like, it's one thing to give a guy a hard time when it's personal like this privately. It's another just go on the podcast and I told him that he's lucky, basically, is what he's saying. I think it's significant-ish.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a dig at Tatum. As I said, these guys work out together all offseason. I've seen them interact during the offseason, and they're not like they're competitors for sure. They go at it in those scrimmages when they're at Drew Hanlon's camp at the same time. but it's not acrimonious. It doesn't look to me like they don't like each other as human beings. But I also don't think that what Embiid said was outrageous. He's right. When Embiid, and this is why I kind of took it a little bit differently, Bill, when I heard it, when he's like, well, when I go for 5 for 20, the Sixers lose. To me, that felt like a dig at previous Sixers teams, and rightly so, because he's correct. Unless he has a massive game, and we've seen multiple times in the playoffs when he hasn't, they haven't been out of the second round. They didn't even get out of the first round this year.
You're right. It's a great read. It's an interesting way to look at the same thing. And you're not wrong. And Embiid's probably not wrong, but he's wrong starting today. I mean, that is not the issue going forward. So it's an interesting – it should – no, I'm not espousing utter confidence. The Sixers are kind of like England, right? Like they should. You look at them and you think – and in some ways, Embiid is Harry Kane. I mean, Harry Kane has never won a trophy of any kind. Embiid's never made a conference final. So – Embiid can make his jokes and it's fine. It's fun. You can blame whatever, bro. You gotta make a conference finals. I mean,
that is so grim to compare him to Harry Kane. Is so grim. It is grim. Poor Harry, man. He can't win anything. Neither can Joel. We'll see if that changes. Joel Embiid's new teammate Paul George was introduced to the Sixers yesterday as well. Bill had some things to say in his introductory press conference that were mostly boilerplate, but prior to that, he also had some interesting things to say on his podcast, which is wonderfully known as Podcast P. And he kind of took some shots at his former team. Here's PG on what it was like to initially sign with the Clippers.
I think initially, you know what I mean, coming back to LA, that was home when I first came back to LA, but it's not the same love. Because when I was in LA, they like, man, you should have been a Laker. That's all I was hearing. It wasn't no like, oh, welcome to the Clippers. Yo, we happy you in LA, but you should have been a Laker.
You was on the second team.
I'm on the B team. That's how the vibe and the love felt, you know.
Also not wrong.
So not wrong. Can I just say this? I know you know this, but for people that don't. So when I moved to LA, and I was like, I have a much better relationship with the Lakers and the Clippers. Going back to the previous regime before Ballmer, did not get along with that regime, and that's why I don't get along with Chris Paul, and I had some ugly interactions. And so we would do like the required, like, let's get coffee and lunch and try to pretend we like each other thing that you have to do. And the sensitivity that Clippers organization has to being the B team. I mean, it's true, but if you bring it up to them, they complain. This is the most – so part of what he's doing, and he knows it, but it's hard to know if you're not sort of in the loop in LA, he is just sticking it to the Clippers organization. Because saying that publicly is the most insulting thing you can say about the Clippers, having left the Clippers. As you know, there are tons of people in the front office and the media relations, all the way up to Ballmer, who are going to hear that and be pissed off. That is him just turning the knife, man. Yeah, it's personal for him.
That is touching a nerve for sure. But also, as I said, not wrong. I mean, everybody knows that I had one of my former producers, close friend of mine, grew up in LA, ended up as a Clippers fan, and I always bust his chops about it. I'm like, man, like, you could have made your life so much easier and more. It's like people who pick the Angels out here instead of the Dodgers. Right. Why are you doing that to yourself?
But at least in that case, maybe you're from Orange County, which is a million miles away. Why would you pick the Clippers?
So I've asked him that a million times.
Oh, that poor guy.
But yeah, so there are people who end up as Clippers fans, and they know it in their heart of heart that, like, they're always going to be the B team. It's the truth. Like, they have this brand new building that we've talked about that's opening next year. It's going to be beautiful. It's state of the art. Steve Ballmer spared no expense. Yeah. And that's okay. Good. You have the better building. You're not going to have
go to that building.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you and me and producer Aaron and Ashley, when she comes out to LA, we'll take a trip and check
I'll be there.
The building. But that's really, like, they're going to be their claim to fame because they haven't enjoyed any success. They tried the experiment with Kawhi and PG for 5 years, and they won a grand total of 3 series, and Kawhi couldn't stay healthy and he couldn't finish off seasons. And it's like, yeah, you're the B team for a reason, because Lob City, right? They kept saying, we're going to get out of the second round. They never did. It's just disappointment after disappointment for the Clippers.
Had a 3-1 series lead against the Rockets, right? 3-1 series lead against the Rockets and blew it. And the Lob City team. If you can't win with the Lob City team, and that was before we sort of knew the Warriors were going to rise, it felt like there was this huge opening in the West, and you can't win with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and you're the Clippers. What are you winning with?
Well, I mean, obviously James Harden. Yeah, there you go. Big season. Big season incoming
Problem
for James
solved.
Harden. Bummer for the Clips and for Clips fans that PG is now paid and dunking on them with a different team, but these things happen. All right, so that's it for you for this week, right? I mean, you and I are back on Sunday. We have a ton of Team USA coverage coming up. Bill and I will have you covered after the first game for Team USA
and Monday.
in the Olympics.
Are you on Monday too next week?
We're on Monday. Ashley will be back. I will be back on Friday, I believe, with Brad Bodkin, TBD on that. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, who coined the self-esteem team, really fine work by you today.
Thank you.
Nailed it today. I am John Gonzalez. We thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.